The Easter eggs and prediction for Season 6, Episode 13 of Marvel's Legions of S.H.I.E.L.D. Beware spoiler, not caught up. So this is Part 2. This is mainly focusing on the Temple and Zephyr 1 and the setup for Season 7. So if you want to talk about the Lighthouse stuff, go to my previous video and comment there. But this is mainly the Temple, Zephyr 1, and setup for the next season. So yeah, we catch up with Daisy and Mack and Yo-Yo, and you see Daisy's not taking May's death very well. She's blaming herself again, like she had done in the previous times that someone has died for her, or because of her, or whatever. But it doesn't really last long because May and Mack and Yo-Yo convince her to focus her energy on something else, and that's revenge this time on Sarge. So yeah, but before that scenario where revenge is that Deke is trying to figure out a way to pilot his way to meet up with Mack, Yo-Yo, and Daisy, and he makes this comment about he shouldn't have let Trevor be the pilot in Remoreth Rumble all the time, because he would have been able to figure out how to pilot this Quinjet if he had been the pilot in the Remoreth Rumble game. So yeah, and there is this comment that Daisy makes towards the zombies, and people are confused about it and wondering why she said this or whatever, because whatnot. But she refers to them as they're dumb, not stupid. And I decided to look it up to see if there's any sort of different like meaning towards the two, and there is a slight difference between dumb and stupid, which stupid means you lack any knowledge at all, whereas dumb means you have knowledge, but it takes a bit of time to use it, if that makes sense. The zombies knew how to use different items or whatever, but if they were stupid, they wouldn't have been able to. So yeah, and there's this other situation where Yo-Yo uses her powers, saying on against the strikes with shooting 3 of them with a gun, and she says, "I don't have to run fast to make things go slow," which is a new thing that we hadn't seen before. But it's also people complaining about her powers again, because a few seconds later, a strike catches her off guard, goes into her mouth, and affects her. And also, it's not just Yo-Yo's powers this time that someone's complaining about, even though, like I said, she was caught off guard. It's also Daisy. Why? Like, people are wondering why Daisy didn't use her powers on Yo-Yo, and the simple answer is because the strikes are attached to Yo-Yo's insides. I don't know exactly the right phrase of which they use, but if the strikes attached to Yo-Yo's insides, so if Daisy quaked the strike, it would inadvertently kill Yo-Yo at the same time, which Daisy was trying to save. So it would be kind of pointless to do that. That's just like they established that earlier on in the season, so that the strikes are attached to their hosts' bodies. So yeah, it wouldn't work very well if you try to quake the strike. So yeah, and you have Yo-Yo and Daisy talking, and Daisy references maybe when the Wicked Witch is gone, her flying army will die off too, referring to the Wicked Witch from Wizard of Oz and her flying monkeys and whatnot. But it's basically foreshadowing the events of this episode of when they killed Izel. It did kill the strikes, so it's foreshadowing that. So yeah, but you have Yo-Yo basically want to try to convince Daisy to kill her, even though it's like has a big problem with people she cares about dying. So I don't know why you would ask her to do that. Like, do you want to try traumatize her even more? But yeah, and going to the whole May stuff. But May and the temple stuff is when the fight between May and Izel was about to start. May does this like stance with a sword, which apparently it's a reference to Mulan, and it was an intentional reference because the actress who plays May and the voice who plays the person who voiced Mulan is Ming-Na Wen, who plays both characters, so they reference that there. And you have another callback, inadvertently callback to a big long running like characteristic joke, I guess, towards Snowflake, even though they never referenced her name. But when right before the fight starts, she said they're talking about life and death, and it doesn't really matter. And May says to Izel, "Get ready to be reborn," talking about the whole butterfly reincarnation and all that kind of stuff. So it's cool that they brought that back, come full circle. So yeah, and you have Mack. I'm not sure if he might have ruined his chances of getting any money back or money from Deke, because Deke Deke was about to head off, like split off from the group, and I think it was Daisy who was like worried about it or something about him in a sense, and Mack tries to basically say, or basically tries to comfort them by saying that Deke has been practicing his shooting. You should see his video game, talking about the Remorth Rumble and how he has the inspiration of Daisy in there. So I don't know, and he was not supposed to have said anything to Daisy about that, and that deal was he would get money, 10% of that, for not saying anything about it. So I wonder, now that he said something, he won't get any money back or get any money from Deke. So yeah, and it's not an Easter egg reference, but I guess in a way they do reference it, kind of. But the fight between Mack and Sarge, I really, really like the differences between the first time that they fought and this time, because the first time Mack did beat up Sarge a lot, but Sarge, even though was able to handle himself in a bit, but here Sarge has his powers he knows about and all that kind of stuff. He knows who he is, so he's able to demolish Mack no problem this time, instead of last time where Mack was the one able to demolish Sarge. So yeah, going to the whole setup stuff, there were some people that are pissed off that and this is predictions area. People were pissed off that again they ended a season where Fitz and Simmons are split up, but I appreciate the differences between this season and the previous season is because Fitzsimmons decided to take it in their own hands and split off for themselves, and it's not like they're gonna have to look for each other or whatever. They willingly did this for the greater good, but also it's not like they aren't in contact with each other, because you do hear his voice or whatever, but Simmons has this line saying, I don't know, I can't know about where Fitz is. Like she doesn't know where Fitz is, can't know where she is, and that's probably because the mission ahead is going to be like a double blind. If you remember from season 1, episode 16, I believe it was, when they were trying to look for the clairvoyant, Sky came up with this idea where one person knew the name of the person that they were going to track down, but the other person knew the coordinates, like the location of the person, and they didn't know, like the other person didn't know the full mission until they got to where they were going, and you have here Simmons talking to Fitz, and Fitz sending them to some place, which I'll talk about in a bit, but Simmons had no idea where they were going. So Fitz knows where they're going, but Simmons didn't know where they were going, and I'm assuming and that's also where the whole LMD is coming in, where they built an LMD Coulson because they needed an expert on SHIELD history, So the best way to do that was for Coulson to come back to life, even though they even reference the fact that Coulson wouldn't want this. He didn't want a life and extension, but they needed his knowledge of Shield history to stop the Chromicons from creating Chronica 3. So so Fitz knew where they needed to go, but Fitz probably doesn't know what the mission is at that point in time, if that makes sense. So, and the point in time that they are in right now, I'm assuming they're going to jump around in different places, but right now they're in between March 17th, 1930 to April 11th, 1931, and that's because they reference that the Empire State Building has not been rebuilt yet, or been built yet, but is also, there's a reference to the Prohibition where Daisy was saying, "I need a drink, but but they are illegal now," and which had taken place in around that time. I believe the last year was 1933, so yeah, it's the 1930s area. So yeah, that's just what I'm assuming is going to take place, is that Fitz knows the location of, or the time that they need to go to, and Simmons has to know the mission, and that's why they got the whole LMD Coulson. And speaking of the LMD Coulson, I wonder where they're gonna go with the whole dynamic between Coulson and Mack. That's the most interesting dynamic I think it could be, because we know Mack is very hesitant on new things and didn't really like LMDs and robots or whatever. So having Mack or Coulson, the LMD Coulson, as Mack's second in command is going to be very interesting next season to see how much of trust issues he's going to have against Coulson. So yeah, that's not really a prediction, but the only prediction I really have is it would be really interesting if the Chromicons had the same idea that our SHIELD team had by bringing back a character with the memories of the past. And since they're dealing with Fitz and Simmons' memories or whatever, and they have their memories, it would be interesting if the Chromicons gave the Fitzsimmons' memories from that mind prison bodies, and they become the villains for next season. Like, they could bring back the Doctor from that memory, and also that zombie or demon Simmons as the main protagonists or main villains of next season. It would be kind of interesting if the Chromicons did that, but I don't know if that would actually come true if they actually do that. Because I don't know how helpful the Doctor and Demon Simmons would be for the goal of creating Chronica 3, but it would be very interesting if they did that. So comment down below if I missed any Easter eggs or references, and if you have any predictions for Season 7. See ya.